Hi everybody, this is Maha Al-Musa and I'm here again today to read to you from my award-winning world-first book, Dance of the Womb. So we'll just see who's out there today. And I've been reading a chapter of my book for the last 4 weeks, and this is the 5th week of sharing with you my beautiful award-winning book. That is for women who are pregnant and birthing, for birth professionals, for midwives, for doulas, for obstetricians. It's a sacred look into using the art of belly dancing to prepare the body for birth and as a tool to use during birth. And I just want to explain that the movements of belly dancing are instinctual, intuitive movements for birth that every woman has within the blueprint or the map of birth within her womb. So today's chapter is called Awakenings, and I'd like to also share in this chapter a piece that my beautiful friend Angela Fitzgerald, who is a midwife and doula and also a very conscious sacred birth educator, who wrote a chapter from her perspective of how to use the belly dance movements in pregnancy and for births. So her story is in this chapter, Awakenings, and I will let you know when we get to her story. But first we start with a poem. My belly swells and recoils to the rhythm. My belly carries my sacrum like a sleeping child, innocent and wise, forward and backward, side to side, round and around. And that is from Dancing Isis Dance in 2003, a beautiful poem. So to begin the chapter, Awakenings. The art of pregnancy, the art of birth, the art of motherhood, all like the art of Middle Eastern birth dance, are profound journeys into self-discovery and self-revelation. The pregnant state can be a time of emotional rawness where our internal and external worlds can impact upon us physically, emotionally, and spiritually, to the degree that we may feel lost and lose touch with our sense of self, the self we thought we knew so well. We may ask ourselves, who am I now, clothed in this new identity? Physically, the change in hormones and the level of hormones can send us on a wild ride that may have no rhyme or rhythm or reason. Physically, this can be confronting. Emotionally, this can be confronting, as well as surprising. We can try to resist the changes, but may just end up becoming frustrated and out of balance. It is helpful to be reminded that the body has been programmed with its own will that was mapped out at the moment of our female conception. It may be wise to surrender and allow time for time and space to integrate this sacred process of revelation. Because time is our teacher. When we finally come to the realization that the flow is upon us, we may receive a jeweled key that opens a wondrous treasure trove filled with endless surprises. I always say this about pregnancy, is that there are so many incredible gifts we're given as women through this journey. And sometimes the challenges that we face become our greatest gift. So how do I navigate through these challenges, these ups and downs, these beautiful moments too, these incredible opening, physically, emotionally, energetically opening moments that come with pregnancy and giving birth? One's personal discovery of belly dance for birth resonates with this very same mood, as it too resists judgment and control, encouraging the creative body to open into unimagined expansiveness. With a heightened sense of meditative awakening and connection to music, one can paint the elements of emotion each tune evokes. When I was pregnant, the urge to dance for me was stronger than any other time in my life. I felt so in tune with the power of creation, my own creativity, and the little being I was created inside my womb. I danced in the forest. I danced by a cool lily pad. I danced lily pond. I danced with women in a wild and lush sacred temple space. I danced alone with music so passionate I felt that my heart could break. I danced and I cried tears of joy that I was alive and I was connected to the great Mother Earth Spirit. I danced for my life, for my sadness, for my anger, for my heartache, for my pain, for my elation, for my love, for my pleasure, for my freedom. I danced and danced. I danced for my world with my family, my partner, my children, myself. I danced in recognition of every woman who would ever come before me and who would ever give birth after me. I love to witness women losing themselves in the allure of the music, devoid of inhibition or performance angst. The beauty of this transformative dance is that there should be a trust in one's own body, mind, and spirit. Likewise in pregnancy, when we move from bud to blossom to birth, great blessings, we carry within our hearts the innate secrets of this magical journey with awe, with honesty, with openness. You cannot help but have these kinds of emotions flood your body when you are pregnant. It asks of us to look within, to connect, to inquire, to be curious about this journey that we are on. It is the greatest expression of the feminine when we become pregnant and give birth. The meaning of life was a constant theme in both my pregnancies. In the latter half of my second pregnancy with my second son, I finally gave myself permission to simply be, to be fully aware in each moment without needing to overanalyze, sitting in serene stillness, breathing, stopping, integrating, meditating, and processing, absorbing the all-pervading field of femininity pulsating within me and within my womb. I began to purge myself spiritually. When I visualized my dear baby boy resting in the warm cavern of my womb, I was able to exchange with their unborn spirit all of my thoughts and feelings that arose in each moment, and I received their essence too. By allowing the flow between us to take its natural course without control, life felt wholesome and healing, like a nurturing meditative practice. And this I did on a daily practice too, knowing that my feelings would be theirs too, and that they would also have their own feelings, and that if I could endeavour to have a conscious pregnancy and be aware of my own patterns and actions, then my child may not have to repeat the same life issues that I had had. Being conscious in stillness gave me the strength to confront any fears I had toward becoming a mother and giving birth. But it was only the beginning. So a little introduction about how I felt in my own pregnancy journey and how the dance helped me to access all parts of my emotions and my spiritual opening that happened when I was pregnant, and then the healings that happened when I was pregnant with my children, really having to look and face my inner demons and the inner beauty of who I am, and the gifts that I give to the world, and the gift of my child and my children. And so I have a beautiful story from Angela Fitzgerald, and her story in my book reflects her own journey and her introduction into using the belly dance for birth and being at my classes with me. And it's a beautiful story. And, as you know, my book was written in 2008, and Angela became a midwife. She's also a birth support doula, and she helps women as well to move through any trauma in birthing. And her heart is there for all women, and I love her very much. And so she wrote this chapter in my book. I studied belly dance for a few years before I became pregnant and found it to be a very powerful meditation for me as a woman. Belly dancing opened my sexual energy, connected me with women in a deeply sensual and psychic way, and made me feel very lush and womanly. Although I wasn't pregnant when I heard that Maha was teaching a belly dance for birth or embody birth class, I just knew that I had to be there. "You will be next," Maha said to me in her knowing way. And she was right. I feel that belly dancing with pregnant women was a powerful conception medicine. Being in Maha's class, I was invoking my fertility and offering myself up to come and be fertilized. At the time when I first came to class, I thought that I was just wanting to belly dance with pregnant women, but on a deeper level, my womb was longing for a baby. Belly dancing with Maha and the pregnant women was like dancing the yearnings of my womb. At the time, I was totally in my head and completely disconnected from the longing to birth. My head said, "You don't have enough money. You haven't made it in the world." Yet my body was ready. My body won, my womb won, and I was happy that it did. Dancing with a baby in my belly was nurturing, honouring, and blissful. I felt the timeless connection with all women in the dance and the simplicity of knowing that we are all one woman. I experienced a relaxation so hypnotically beautiful. With all the hormones of pregnancy, the dancing is like whipped cream on top of rich mud cake. I loved exploring our playfulness with the women while pregnant. We all dressed up in belly dance costume, feeling like the archetypal goddesses we truly are. Belly dancing helped me greatly in pregnancy. The circular movements stretched my skin as my baby grew inside me, allowing for a gradual ripening of me as a pregnant woman. I massaged with oil daily and came away with not one stretch mark. I felt that dancing helped a lot with this. As my baby grew, it would sometimes feel tight and cramped, but when I belly danced, it stretched everything out to make for a more comfortable mold for my baby and I. Toward the end of my pregnancy, I found the dance to be so powerful. I felt that it truly belonged to women and birth. I reached some ecstatic states during belly dance for birth as I embodied birth through the belly dance movements. If you've just joined me, I'm reading from my book, Dance of the Womb, an award-winning world-first book on how we can embody birth using the belly dance, ancient movements of birth, the lineage to the ancient feminine that I have personally been teaching now for 20 years. And I teach pregnant women, but I also do a teacher training in embody birth. So teachers can now teach my work all over the world and bring this ancient knowledge to women for birthing, to let them know that they have everything within them to give birth, everything they need. And how do they access this information, this blueprint of birth? One of the ways is through the belly dance movements. And I'm reading a chapter in my book from Angela Fitzgerald, who came to my classes and had a baby now nearly 16 years ago and became a midwife. So she's sharing her perspective on belly dance for birth. The relaxing aspect of belly dancing holds deep salve for pregnant women in modern times. Pregnancy demands a feminine way of life, flowing with the day and the mood, resting when necessary, eating intuitively. How many women get to be pregnant like this? Belly dancing gives back our right to flow, to rest, to feel and be blissful. You know, it's a whole philosophy. It allows for the feminine soul dream time. A few months of softening before the reality of the non-stop that mothering brings. Pregnancy hormones plus the belly dance equals a softer, happier, more tranquil mama. And guess what? A happy mama makes for a happy, relaxed bubba. Belly dancing is the wisdom of the goddess at work. It is a practical therapy that is timeless, seamless, and effortless. We were talking yesterday, a midwife and I, about how a baby reflects the mother's mood. And she had a beautiful statement where she said, this is my midwife Jane, who was at my birth of Amina, my home birth at 46, and she said that a baby is the barometer of the mother's emotions. And it's so true. The way we are really impacts on how our babies are. So the more relaxed state we can come into, the more relaxed our babies will be. And dancing with your baby postnatally as well will bring you into a beautiful, calm, tranquil space as well. So the belly dance movements continue on after giving birth too. Another great gift of belly dance for birth is the opportunity for women to be felt and seen without the veil of the social face. Women connecting in a sacred dance can experience all aspects of the feminine by making eye contact with other women whilst connected to their deepest self. This is where we meet and understand other women without a word being spoken. I am seen as I am, and I see my sister as she is. With no story, there is just the light of our souls meeting in waves of sensuality and delight. That is a beautiful line. Thank you, Angela. I love that. Meeting woman, as I say, meeting heart to heart, face to face, eye to eye, and womb to womb. As Angel says, with no story, there is just the light of our souls meeting in waves of sensuality and delight. I am every woman, and every woman has a gift for me, and I for them. This dance is sacred. It feels very old, very simple, and very powerful. And I add ancient. It is an ancient dance of the feminine. Once after a belly dance session, a woman told me that her baby was lying in breech and she was worried about how the birth would be. That night I had a dream that I helped the baby to turn. The next class she told me her baby had turned. Who knows what lengths we will go to as women to help another woman, especially when it involves a baby. Having danced all through my pregnancy, dancing in labour just flowed naturally. In my early labour, I used the circling movements whilst having contractions, feeling a sense of fluidity and bliss. It also gave me a place to focus my energy. While I stayed connected with the deep opening of birth waves, I was able to dance and flow into and with my labour. As the labour progressed, I started to experience a mistrust of my body. My mind could not believe what was happening in my body, and I began to work out how to birth my baby using my intellect. How on earth am I going to be able to get this baby out from this tiny space called my yoni? How did my grandmother have 6 babies? Why didn't anyone tell me about this? This is the blood mystery of birth. How a birth unfolds has a lot to do with what is stored deeply in the womb and the mind of the mother. And I want to add here, we have a society now that is creating more negativity around a woman's ability to gestate, be pregnant with a baby, and birth a baby naturally. So we are adding to her angst. We need to be taking away her fears and her angst and her anxiety, not adding to it. Because it has an impression on us when we step into the birthing arena, and these things can come up in the birth. So we need to be very delicate with women when they're in a vulnerable place. We need to see and truly hear them from a heart place. And this is what my work in embodied birth and my philosophy of birth is all about. Feeling a woman and her heart with her baby. And when we truly see, feel and hear her, her body will open. What a woman has felt in her lifetime and during her own birth, as well as the births in her female lineage, is carried and passed down. I've heard that midwifery used to involve deep psychotherapy so that a woman could feel and move through any deep fears, traumas, or sexual abuse issues. The midwife would help her feel and thus transform any blockages to the flow of life force that births us all. And that is a big part of the Belly Dance Birth Embody Birth program. It is about moving through and flowing through any blockages or obstacles that we have, not claiming them as right or wrong, good or bad, just saying that is what I'm feeling. How do I, if I am ready to move through these obstacles, how do I do that? And using breath, sound, movement, getting out of the way of the rational mind, letting it go, surrendering into body, physical, energetic, spiritual, emotional. How can we assist women? This is what birth education needs to be about. Not telling women what to do. It is not an instruction. It is an invitation into looking deep within the self. And I continue with Angel. A great lesson for me was realizing that I needed more women with me while I birthed. I had somehow lost faith in my sisters as wise and necessary, and saw myself as the capable and independent woman. How wrong I was. Women's connection in birth and mothering is a huge survival raft. It is almost impossible to birth or mother successfully without the help of many experienced and compassionate elder sisters. This was one of the gifts I received from birthing and mothering. Every once in a while I meet a pregnant woman, and it feels right I offer one of the jewels from my journey through the portal of life and death we call birth. I will not be silenced. I offer my experience up that it might help another through the birth canal in a more surrendered and trusting way. All pain is due to resistance. Resistance in birth creates a block in the flow of the birth. When I allowed the birthing energy to do me, and I was in the birth dance, when I had fear, I felt great pain. The only way a bird can fly is to leave the nest, look to the sky and jump. Somehow the divine provides the lilt and the loft for wings to open and for the bird to be supported in flight. And so it is with birth. A woman must dive off the edge of what she knows in her mind and allow the great birth mother to support her in the birth dance of surrender and release. We cannot do it ourselves. My mind could never work out how to birth my baby. But there was something in me that knew how to do it, and so it was done. To be opened by the divine is to be naked and completely step into the trust of God, that which we express as God, into the unknown and the uncharted waters of the mystery of childbirth. Belly dance for birth, embody birth, could well be the anchor that keeps a woman connected to her core, her foundation of trusting in the spiraling waves of labour. And I will add, to be connected to her baby. Remember, I always say, the intelligence of the mother and the intelligence of the baby are the experts of birth. They dance together when supported in a loving, compassionate, and kind environment. It is a great gift. It is a key to keeping a woman at home with herself, her body, and to have faith in the turbulent and sometimes shockingly painful waves that lead her to the shore of new life. I experience some of the impact of birth dance, yet I feel the potential of the gifts this dance in birth are waiting further and deeper exploration. So that was a part of Angela Fitzgerald's connection to the birthing dance and the classes and her own birth experience from my award-winning world-first book, Dance of the Womb. So it's been a great pleasure reading chapters from my book. Today was the fifth chapter that I've read, and I want to let you know that my Embody Birth training will give you, as a teacher, it's a teacher training, and it will give you all of the tools and reflections and philosophies that I speak about in my book, about the true depth of the feminine meaning of birth from my own perspective, my own experience, my own teaching of 20 years. What I see is the same thing that I saw 20 years ago. That is coming back to the basics of birthing. bringing birth back to the heart, hands, womb, and baby of women. Women and babies know birth. The living book is within. Read her. And the beauty of embodying birth through these belly dance birth movements that I teach are that those movements are within every woman. It's not on the outside. We're not looking on the outside for the expert, the one to tell me what to do. You know how to give birth, and these classes will give you back that knowing and that understanding as an invitation into yourself. Not so much an instruction. Yes, we learn the movements, and if you become a teacher, you learn all the movements of my program. You learn the circle movements and the variations. You learn the figure eight movements, the spiraling movements, the hands and the arm movements, the cervix movements, the spiral movements, the chest movements. So we learn all of those movements, and then we just allow the body to feel. It is a somatic practice. The Embody Birth program brings us out of the intellect and into the heart space, into the womb space, into the connection with the baby. It's a holistic childbirth education that speaks the language of the feminine for birth. And as many of you know, I am very, very strong about that. And I'm very, very strong about a woman having a right to the inherent wisdom that is within her body. No one has a right to take that from us or sever us from our knowing, our consent, and our choices around birth. And I'm very, very strong in that. So I encourage women not to be empowered. I don't like that word empowered because that implies that I have the power and you don't have the power. I prefer to say, I inspire you to find the blueprint, the map of birth within you with your baby. And these movements of the ancient belly dance, these birthing dancing movements, are like a compass and a guiding light to access and activate that birth womb wisdom. So if you're interested in my Embody Birth training, please get in touch. In 2017, I'm training in India, in Australia, in different places, in New Zealand and in Japan so far, and we're adding new places on into 2017, 2018. If you're interested in my book, Dance of the Womb, or I also have my beautiful DVD as well. And what I've done with the DVD, when I was pregnant with my daughter at 46, all of the movements that are in the book are now on DVD whilst I was pregnant. So I brought the movements to life so you can see me using the movements as a prenatal exercise, and then you can see me using the movements in labour, in my home water birth at 46 years of age. And I say to women, if I can do it, you can do it. So you can be inspired through me. I say to the women in my classes, draw on my strength. Draw on my strength and all the women who've come before you. Know we are with you whilst you give birth. And on my DVD, which is downloadable on my website, you can also see my home birth film and watch me using these movements in the first stage of labour, these belly dance birth movements to embody birth, to be in my body for birth with my baby. So I encourage you, if you're interested, to have a look at my book and DVD at www.mahalmusa.com, and I'll leave that in the comments below. And yeah, I'll be back again next week to read another chapter from my book and share with you my philosophy and my knowledge and my love of women, birth, babies, families, fathers, partners, humanity. We are doing this to raise the level of consciousness of love for humanity, because birth is about love. Thank you, everyone. And as we say in my Embody Birth, Mama stay. Mama stay. Thank you for listening.